Hello, welcome. Happy Friday, everybody. It's great to have you with us. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name's Maria Marquis, and here at Coda, I focus on customer education and really just celebrating the work of all of our makers. Now, lucky for all of you, I'm joined by our wonderful Coda maker, Phil, and this is actually a new series that we're trying out, really celebrating the docs that are being made in our community. We're calling it Maker Stories, and it's where we sit down with a Coda maker, nerd out on their doc, and also just answer any questions you have about their building process and being able to really pick their brain about this cool doc that they built. So, Phil, do you want to just introduce yourself to the group? Tell them a little bit about you, your life story in 30 seconds or less.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me on. It's going to be really exciting to talk about this doc. So, yeah, my name is Phil, and I live in Los Angeles. I'm an assistant editor in TV. And, yeah, I think it's important to note that I'm not like a coder by any stretch. I'm not like an Excel whiz by any means. I'm more of a creative person. Like I work in post-production in TV. So I, know Photoshop and After Effects and Avid. And so like I'm computer savvy in those ways, but mainly as a creative person. And I went to film school. So I haven't really I'm not a math person. I thought that might be helpful for a lot of people out there.
I'm not a math person either.
But I am a puzzle person. And that's kind of probably what I like about Coda.
Awesome.
And yeah, we both got striped shirts on, which is very exciting.
Yes. We had this thought when we both joined in. We're like, oh, hey, I'm blue and white and you're white and blue. And then we also noticed in the cover photo in Phil's doc, that person is also wearing a striped shirt. So I'd love to say that we planned it, but we didn't. It's just synchronicity and all of that. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started digging into Phil's doc. We do want to make sure that we can answer any questions that you have about what he's built. And also I'm here to answer any Coda things in particular as well. So over on the right, which a lot of you have already found, which is awesome, there's a chat field, and you can go ahead and type whatever's on your mind there if you want to hype things up. Yeah, hello, Benjamin. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. And that's there for you at any point in time. Feel free, pop whatever's on your mind over there. If you've got a question, though, just so we don't lose it in the flow of conversation that's happening, I'd love it if you could just click on Ask a Question, which is right at the bottom of your screen. That's a great place to post whatever's on your mind. And if you're not sure if you've got a question, but you want to know what other people are asking, you can always click on it and then upvote or downvote questions that you might have. So a way to really get yourself heard. We'll also have plenty of time at the end to just hang out too. So with that being said, Phil, let's start to think about your doc. So
Yes.
Let's start off with, what was the problem that you were trying to solve in building this doc, cracking the code and the puzzle of it?
Well, so I guess the doc started out, it wasn't a problem so much as I wanted a place to store links that I liked and wanted to remember and keep with me forever. So links of live performances, links of music videos, links of other songs. And so that's what I came in to start doing. And then I realized with all of Coda's functions that you could embed those links that you had in your Coda doc. And then so once I realized that, I realized, oh, well, I have all these links for songs that I like. I would just love to be able to listen to them in a playlist. So that was the problem. How do I make Coda, which is a doc, which I think a lot of people's way into it is like as a spreadsheet alternative. And how can I get this, build a framework that will just allow me to listen to my links in sequence in a playlist? So that was the problem.
Cool. Yeah. And then how are you doing that before? So like before you had a Coda doc, how were you kind of managing the sound and the music or the audio productions and things you wanted to listen to throughout your day? Like what did that look like before?
Well, I mean, I still use Spotify, and I'll like links on my YouTube, or I would keep them in a Google sheet, just buried away on my Google Drive. And I still use Spotify, but the thing is, what I really like about just having this doc with me is that I have it all the time, and wherever I go, I can pull it up and share a link. And I can also, I guess one of the problems I was trying to solve is that there are songs that aren't on Spotify for whatever reason. You know, the label isn't putting that song on, or, you know, it's just a live performance that wasn't properly recorded or recorded by a fan. So combining those different sources of media into one place seemed like an opportunity to use Coda.
Cool. Yeah, well, let's go ahead and dive into the doc. Let's take a look. Want to give us a tour of how it's put together? Yes.
Yes. Okay, so this is the exciting part. Where is my cursor? Here we go. All right. I hope this works. You can see I'm getting. Oh, it doesn't look like a spinny ball on the. I have a little bit of a spinny ball, so let me. Oh, here we go. Whoa. Bear with me as I lag a little bit. But okay, so here's the doc. Here's the doc, people. I'm just going to zoom out on my Chrome a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure we're not the only people in the battling of the Wi-Fi during these work from home days, so not a problem.
Yes, I'll please bear with me. All right, so here we go. So here it is. Here's the doc that I've called the music player and library. I have these quick instructions, which basically call out the 3 main points of the doc when you're functionally using it, going about your business. So here's the music player right here. And I have a preloaded playlist in right now. So I can press start on the dock. And it'll do its thing. And it'll start playing my song. And you probably can't hear the song. It's lagging quite a bit because of my internet. But I could now hear Wilco's Jesus, etc. in my ears, loud and clear. And it's a great time. Just what I wanted to happen. And then I press a arrow left or right, and I can go to the next song. Very exciting. I can keep going through. You can see the playlist updating below.
Love it.
So that's kind of like
always skipping playlist, like, 30 seconds here, 30 seconons there. I'm very irritating on the radio.
Yes, would not want to be stuck in a car with you. I guess.
You know.
That's not true. I was just adding comedy to this as it lags. But anyway. So below what I call the music player, which is this assortment of buttons, I won't point out all the features right now. You have the playlist. So the playlist is kind of a standard table that you would have in Coda. So this is just the songs you've chosen from the song library, which we'll get to in a second. And then each of these songs has a duration, and those durations are really what control the whole doc. So the way the window up here works is it'll be open for a certain amount of time, then go to the next thing, be open for a certain amount of time, go to the next thing.
Cool.
So the playlist is kind of important for controlling that. And the song library down below, and here we'll collapse it, which is a fun thing to do.
Yeah, love that new feature of the collapsing and expanding. It makes everything so much cleaner when you're like.
Yeah, I actually I don't know if we'll get to an old iteration of this doc, but I had jerry-rigged my own version of collapsing with a button.
Oh, cool! I'm glad we were able to get that for you.
Yeah, so that's very helpful to have that little carrot there to click on. So the song library is really just a spreadsheet of all the songs that I've collected. It's unfiltered right now, so it goes on pretty far. Yeah, you can see the bar scrolling on the right hand side of the screen while the doc tries to keep up with my laggy connection. But anyway, so here is, if you have a link, which I do, I have a link that I want to add. Let's see if this works. There's this song by Billie Eilish that was recorded on The Voice, and I love it, and I haven't put it in this doc yet.
Oh, cool.
And so I'll just show people how I would go about it. So this is the link right here, even though it's not coming up. So I made this button, click Add to Library. Video on video.
Oh no.
Well, here's what I would do. I can go in and fix the link later. So here's what I think the link is. It might not work. And the song is When the Party's Over.
Oh yeah, this is such a good song.
Yeah, the song is great. And the cover that they did on The Voice is also awesome. So I'm just going to call it The Voice. I don't remember the performer's name right now. I'm going to say that it's 3 minutes, but I don't know because the YouTube link was being a little
silly YouTube.
silly.
I'll tell Shashir about it. Hey Shashir, call your YouTube people.
That would be very helpful. And then, so I also built in this thing. You can add the album it came from, the track number, just like your old iTunes, and you can tag it, which is another cool thing that you might not have in YouTube, or Spotify has their own built-in tags and attributes like beats per minute and stuff. And you could create any number of columns that you want to keep track of in your own music library. And so for me, this is a live performance, so I'll do that. This performance that I chose is male vocals and female vocals, so I'll choose that. It's also
these are all tags that you kind of made up yourself, right, Phil? That this is how you like to think about your music, yeah? Exactly,
yeah.
Nice.
So it's like, if I'm in the mood for live music, I've made a filter so that I can just sort my library by live music. So I'll show that to you right now, because this is kind of the song library is what I was building at the very front when I just wanted a repository of links.
Yeah.
So here, we can choose one of these tags. Choose the tag. And so all my tags are right here listed out.
Cool.
And so if we go to live, click on that link, it'll come right up in a second.
Yeah, one thing I love about this doc, Phil, is how you've really used buttons. Buttons are one of my favorite Coda features. And I love how you've added so much color and interaction with that. I think as I was looking at this before we were getting started, I was like, I love the button work here, because it just makes everything, it makes it really feel like you said, old school iTunes when you would be going in there, or going onto Spotify and doing all the favoriting and adding and adjusting. It really just kind of makes the doc come alive for me.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, buttons are great. And being able to quickly draw your eye to something that's important and add a little color coding in there, I think can really make a doc look fresh and easy for people to access who didn't build it, who are just coming to it as a template and using it on their own. So here you can just see the live filter finally worked. And this one, it's giving me an error. I built in these conditional formatting, and I think the error is probably the link doesn't work or something like that, like the link ID. So that's kind of the main part of the doc. I'll just quickly take you on a tour of the other pages. The next page, so one of the features of the music player is you can save a playlist, or you can load in a saved playlist.
Oh, cool.
So these are the tables where those playlists live. So I don't know if, everyone has their own way of going about things in Coda and whatever makes sense to them. So I don't know if I really need two tables here. So I have the playlist songs as their kind of own table, and then they're combined into the playlist names themselves.
And did you do a formula for that? Is that how that is? Or are they just kind of separate and you work with them both?
They are, let's see. So I think this formula is probably, so when I save them, when I save a playlist coming from, guys, I'm sorry about all my lag over here. Make sure my connection's still good.
Yeah.
So when you're in the playlist and you save it, the playlist has an order. So the order will be assigned to, in the down here at the bottom of the screen, the playlist songs. That order will be saved. And then I think this is this does look like I'm using a formula. There we go, we're moving. At the top here. So if I could get the little, that's what I want. If I click on this, we can kind of see, but I think it is just kind of a formula map
Yeah.
probably listing out. Oh, it's just a numbered list. It's a good old numbered list.
Oh yeah, and this is actually for those of you who might be new to Coda. This numbered list or bulleted list, part of a formula, is one of my personal favorites because what you can do is you can do a very simple formula like, hey, look at my playlist table, count the number of songs, and then make it a bulleted list or a numbered list, and it
Mhm.
formats it in this really cool way that we see in Phil's doc. But it is just like one little part of a formula. You just pop it at the end, and it can all of a sudden bring in a bit of formatting, which I think is really cool. Yeah. Awesome. Go ahead, Phil. Sorry, I just wanted to call out that little nugget because I think it's such a powerful bit of the formula language. Simple but powerful.
Oh yeah, it's great. Super helpful. Yeah. So anyway, those are the main parts of the doc. If people do go and start using the template from like the Coda gallery, there are more in-depth instructions here. And then I'll just show the last thing, which I tend to have on a lot of my docs, is kind of just like a back end page where a lot of the mechanics the structural things that you're not supposed to see that are just doing their job in the background live. So that's what this is. And so I don't know, maybe we'll come back to some of this. But so all the tags also exist as a table here. And so you can also go see all the songs that have certain tags. And that's just a nice thing to have.
Yeah.
But also it helps you later when you're filtering by tags. It kind of uses this. So the media player had that gray bar when it wasn't on. And that's something is concatenated rectangles, and concatenated is not a word I say out loud a lot, so I hope I'm saying it right.
You are. It sounds like it shouldn't be a thing, but concatenate turns out it's a fancy way of saying put some words next to each other.
Yeah. And yeah, so that's what's going on here, except not with words, but with rectangles. So basically, I made this table with some formulas that I quite like, which is why I haven't deleted all the other little gradients here that you don't see elsewhere. I just like them, so I left them there. You could choose any of these to be the media player is off bars. But this is the one I have. So you can just list out any number of hex values, RGB code, and it'll create this little gradient for you. And the other thing I have going on, which I think is really cool, which we can't really see right here, but I'm just going to go back to the music player. So that's like the back end where a lot of stuff lives. But one of the things I built is in the media player, you have a little progress bar that shows you the progression of the song in time, and then right under that, the progression of the whole playlist in time. I just thought that would be a little fun thing that I knew I was able to do in Coda that would make it feel a little more like an app that you're used to that has a progress bar or a playhead moving along somewhere. So I can just talk about it while it tries to get back to the right page.
Yeah, and actually, we've got a question coming in from Joan, which I think is really cool. And I have some perspectives, but I'd love for you to kind of share your perspectives too. Which is, I love this simple, clean design of what you put together here, Phil. Is using Coda just as simple. What's a good way in? I'm intimidated but intrigued, which I totally makes sense because when you see something that's been built like Phil's doc, that's just super cool with all of these really awesome parts that work together. We're seeing the end product, right? We're not seeing the building process and the tinkering that went into it. So I would say my recommendation when it comes to this, as far as is Coda just as simple, is that Coda is as simple or as complex as you want it to be. So if you're like, I'm just getting started, you can always open it up and just remember, it's just a doc. You can just start typing, using it to make some notes, adding some bulleted lists, some checklists. Then maybe you've got some data you want to start organizing. Like Phil was saying, he's got a bunch of links he wants to organize. You could make a table. And then you can always just keep adding things on as you go. And I'm actually going to put a link in chat. This is a doc I actually put together that has a bunch of different video tutorials that can help you kind of get started and understand the different building blocks that you can start to work with. So while you can take Coda fully to the end and make it really, really involved, you can always start by just typing. And that's my recommendation as far as just getting going. But Phil, I think this is a really good opportunity for folks to hear from you. Kind of how did you go from blank canvas to then this really cool, involved, elegant doc that you've made? Kind of what that looked like for you.
Yeah, well, I guess a good way to get there is also just talking about how I found Coda in the first place and what
Yeah.
attracted me to it. You know, because I was a beginner once too, and now I've spent quite a few hours just tinkering, and so I know a little bit more. But before that, in my job as an assistant editor, I was managing visual effects workflows. So just trying to keep track of, you know, shots that come in or out on a TV episode. You might have 30, you might have 250, and you're going to get multiple versions of all those shots. So you could have a lot of files to keep track of and communicate to different people. And so we were doing that in Google Docs some of the time. You know, bigger shows will have their own VFX departments, but a lot of the times it's just the AEs doing their thing. So I was looking for a program where I could have all this data and get really quick and easy and visual feedback in terms of our progress and what needed to get done next and that sort of thing. So that was the problem I came to with Coda. And so when I kind of lost track of the question, but in terms of
Brilliant.
how I begin the doc, is that what we were saying? Or
yeah, kind of thinking about like getting started, going from blank canvas to now I've got like a full system that I've built, you know, breaking down those steps, like what does that building process look like? And any advice you might have for folks too.
I guess, so one thing that really helped me out when I started was Coda had these videos about schema design, which is basically how you're gonna plan your doc. Because I think a lot of my docs grow organically. Like this one, I just had a table that I wanted to build out. I was like, oh, if I do this, then I can do that. But if I do that, I might as well do this. And then it keeps building from there. So one of the methods, there are two methods that have stuck with me. And there's like the big table where you have everything in a table, and then that's your hub for everything. Another method is, was it called like the star design?
Yes.
Where like you have like a lot of different points. So you could have one table that, like I have. So I have my song library, and then I have my playlists table in that other page, and then I have all the music tags. And so those are all kind of linking to each other and crossing over, and that gives you different relationships between your records. So I usually start with just one thing. In this case, I started with the song library, and then I knew that I kind of thought, okay, the only way this is going to work is having embedded media with autoplay play in a certain window, like I said. So then I went in to build the playlist and just making buttons to bring things up to a playlist that I would then add the sums of the durations, and then that would be what is going on in the actual media player. So that's, I don't know, that sounds a little involved, but I guess you know, my advice to people who are just creating a doc is just start doing stuff. I mean, I was working on a little more. Start building the elements that you're trying to keep track of, and you'll ultimately find your way. It actually is very intuitive as you dig into it. And I was just working on a doc where I was really stumped about what to do next, so I just started trying different things, and there's a lot of trial and error involved. Yeah. So that would be my advice: is just don't get frustrated if you're new to this, because there's a lot of ways to do a lot of cool stuff.
And I also want to just kind of reiterate something that Phil said, which is you can start with just one thing and then be like, oh, what if I did this? Or like, I wonder how I could add that. Oh, I could add this if I wanted to. You know, like starting with your first original problem, right? I need a place to organize all of the media that I love. Okay, now how can I make it so that if I'm really just interested in just listening to live stuff, that I can make it really easy for me to do that? Oh, well, you know what? I'm going to add tags and go ahead and include that. Like, oh, now what if I wanted to kind of create a full embedded media player? What would that look like? That it's kind of like start with one bit and you can always be adding on, because I think that the process and the journey of a Coda doc is just as valuable as the destination, right? Like if you've just created one first step, you're already like making progress and you're getting value from that right away. And yeah, that you can tinker. It's about kind of trial and error. And then if you're like, I'm stumped, we've got a whole team of people, our customer champions and the Coda community at community.coda.io. That's like a great place to just get people to help out. Phil, we've got a really cool question here, which I'm also interested in. From Reeve, which is, what do Phil's other docs do? So this is one of your Coda docs. What other Coda docs have you made?
Okay, so the one I was just talking about, where I was really stumped about what to do, was a pretty involved one that I'm still working on, but I'm really proud of it. It's a tournament bracket.
Cool.
So basically, it's like a single elimination tournament bracket. So you could use it for teams, playing sports. But during quarantine, my friends and I have done this weekly ritual where we nominate films, choose however many have been nominated, except for the ones that are certainly we don't want to watch. We put them in a tournament bracket, single elimination. Then we just vote. We go round by round and vote through until we have one that we all agree on and watch.
I love that.
And for that, there's an online app we've been using combined with another online app, and they're a little bit cumbersome in how they're used. And so I realized Coda had the potential, if you could write the correct formulas and have the right tables, you could actually then just have one single page with a button or two buttons that does all the work for you in terms of advancing people. So that's my latest doc. Very excited about it.
Love that.
The other thing about it, I don't know. So like, people in the community have figured out how to put in scalable vector graphics into Coda to embed images that way. So it takes advantage of that and automatically generates a visual bracket for people to watch as well, which is very exciting.
I need to steal this doc.
I just posted it yesterday. I was very excited.
Oh, I got to check it out.
It's in the show and tell.
Oh, nice. I was out of the office yesterday, so I will definitely lurk on that a little bit later.
Well, quite all right. It's okay that you haven't seen it yet. No, but that's okay. Very excited about it. Some other docs. So like, I just got curious about my siblings are having kids, and I was just curious when the combined age of my parents would be surpassed by the combined age of their descendants. So that's like a simple math problem.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm not like great at math, but what I could do in Coda was just say, okay, everyone was born in these years, on these dates, these times. And then instead of like having a formula that would just spit out the answer, because I'm not really sure what that is, I just made a slider with all the years. So I could just slide it and then see when those sums would change and surpass each other. So, so that's one doc. Christine just called out. So we're trying to organize all our books. She's a real book fiend. And I say that in the most loving way.
Me too, Christine. Me too.
So we are trying to catalog all our books like a little library. But what's cool about doing it in Coda is that not only will you have the book title and the book author, but we're doing the genre. We're saving some attributes of the authors. So like, are they alive or dead, or man or woman? And then we're also keeping tracks of the books we've read, the books we've lent out. And it's all super easy. And then it's just kind of cool to see, okay, how many books have I read by a male author or a female author? How many books have I read by dead authors? And so you could, just keep adding. I've thought about adding a column just for notes on books. Like, what did I take away from this book once I'm done? So that's something that's an ongoing project.
I love that. One of my colleagues. I love it. Yeah, it's like, what's all the docs? But one of my colleagues made a published doc a couple weeks ago that's for book clubs, which kind of reminds me of the book doc that you're talking about, which is the sort of being able to vote, like here are the books that I think we should do in our book club. So a communal voting table. And then here's the book that we're reading next. Here's the Zoom link for when we're going to host it, since there was a potluck aspect to it before, but now that we're all virtual, that's a part of it. And then the same thing of like notes, questions, what would you like to talk about? And one thing I think for the library instance, if you're looking for, oh, that sounds really cool to me, there's a equipment tracker doc in our gallery that's made by Ben Lee, one of our wonderful community managers, who's just a fantastic person. And it has just buttons that allow you to check in, check out equipment, and you can very easily do that with books as well. The whole button in a column to change the status of a column is one of, I think, the most valuable patterns to make something immediately feel app-like. And then, cool fact, if you were to pull up that Coda doc then on your phone, you could then actually just swipe to the left and it would expose those buttons to like check in, check out. So if you're like standing at your bookshelf with somebody, lending it to them, you could go ahead and do it. So lots of fun opportunities there. Cool. And everybody, keep those questions coming. Definitely such a fun opportunity to pick Phil's brain on how he builds. One thing I think, thinking about how you build, Phil, is when you were building this doc, were there any surprises or kind of missteps that you noticed in the building process?
Yeah, well, so I guess I think my biggest surprise is that it works.
I love that. That's awesome.
Well, that was, I think Coda is such a fun tool, and why I've gotten so into it is because it is just like whatever you can make happen with these formulas, you can do, and you're not really sure where the limits are. So kind of exploring those limits has been really fun for me and a lot of people in the community. So I think just, the fact that it worked was a big accomplishment for myself. I guess a surprise. One of the things, not a surprise, I guess, but one of the things I learned while I was making it was how to use visual indicators to kind of tell you some of the info without getting in the way. I can show up, I have here already an old iteration of the doc.
Yeah, I love that.
That is a little, it's a little less polished, but it also has some cool things going on. So I'll just drag it in now, and hopefully it'll load up. So you can see it already. The media player looks a little different. The buttons are all different. And to my eye, this looks like just a little bit more of a mess. And so you can see here, like, the remove in the other doc is just an X with gray. And that's a little more intuitive and takes up less space. So some of the surprises and things that I learned along the way was really how to design the look and convey all the information I wanted. It went away. But there you can see all the gray X's that are helping you. The other thing is I was trying to use emojis and so in Coda, one of the formulas is rectangle. And so you can have a different color rectangle. So I was going to say, okay, different colors mean different things. So here, if you're using the music player, one of the functions I built in is loop. So if you click loop, this little circle, if you're paying attention, is going to update, and now it's green. So that lets you know that loop is on without having to have a separate icon, which is what I did here. So here, at first, I had a formula outside of the button with a little loop emoji and the little circle with the gray or green right next to it. And that just takes up more space. It's also, once you realize you can do the formula inside of the button title, then you don't need to waste the space outside of the button.
Yeah.
So that was a little exciting surprise that I found.
I love that. And, I think the perspective here, like the mindset that I love that you have, Phil, is this whole thing of like, I wonder if I could make this better, or I wonder if I could add this icon in the button instead of outside of it, and being able to have kind of that just sort of exploring curiosity and just tinkering with it, and being able to always find ways to make things better, which I think is cool. We have a question here, which is, can makers incorporate their own designs with Coda, or is it limited to Coda's designs? So question asker, I'd love if you could give me a little more information about what you're looking for, because Coda does allow for some flexibility with how things look. There are some certain restrictions. I think the main restriction is that the overarching structure of any Coda doc is it's going to have those pages along the left that can be nested as much as you like. And then each doc has sort of that ability to scroll through. But what you put inside of it varies a lot. So Phil, I'm not sure if there's anything else that you'd want to add to as far as like the design limitations or design possibilities from your perspective.
Well, I guess. No, I think you pretty much covered what I would say. I think people in the community are finding more and more ways to expand some of the design elements. And really, I just mean in terms of the graphics and the whole scalable vectors thing. It's a little in the weeds, but it's like really cool. And I think is really helpful for me working in teams to get my team members on board. People who see a new system and don't want to learn it, but if it can offer something like a really slick progress bar that conveys a lot of information quickly, that's one of the design elements that I find really helpful about Coda. But it's just really cool. It's a good word processor, just typing and writing, and the whole collapsible lists and numbered lists and bulleted lists, like you said, are super helpful. And the ease with which you can do, like, is it called like markdown? Like you press slash and you get a whole bunch of options. So there are a bunch of shortcuts, just using it as a word processor that I think a lot of people could benefit from. And then, and then when you start thinking, okay, well, if I'm just writing in the blank document, what if I wrote in a table, and then I could like track certain words that I use, and then that's how the possibilities start expanding, and you come up with a doc that you never expected.
I love that. We've got a question here, which is, what is your favorite thing, Phil, about Coda overall? If you had to pick, what's your favorite thing?
So I guess I love the functionality of it, but my favorite thing about it is how it feels like a puzzle. Like that's what really keeps me coming into it, and the satisfaction I get out of creating this whole system and just exercising my brain. It's a little bit like, this might sound dumb to some people, but like playing video games, like coming up with the right formula. You just have to be so in it and like in the moment. I'm not a coder, but the only stuff I know about coding is from the movie The Social Network, which is a great movie. I'm sure it's very accurate.
Yeah.
And, but they're like, oh, he's plugged in. And so I imagine it takes that amount of focus. So that's kind of what I get a lot of the time out of it, is just that satisfaction of being in something, creating this framework, and then a month later having no idea how I did it or why it works, but just being really satisfied by the fact that I can use it.
Or even just, I think, I love that you bring up this idea of like, that it does feel like a puzzle, and the satisfaction of like, when you've been looking at the little empty space and then you find the piece that fits and it just like goes in, and then all of a sudden it just works and the picture comes together, that there is something to that of like, when you get the inner action just right, or you add the button that does exactly the thing that you want it to do, there is a certain joy of like, yes, I did it.
Yeah.
I'm unstoppable.
Yeah. And sometimes things don't work for a long time, and then you figure out, instead I was referencing a number when I meant to be referencing text. And that's one of the things about Coda, is so like every column in these tables has a type. So it can be text, it can be a number, it can be a lookup table, which is how you reference other tables, you look them up. And so if you're not matching the right type to the right type, that's probably a beginner mistake that took me a long time to learn, because you might not realize what you're doing. And actually, once people get into a formula and start using it, it actually becomes quite clear. And like Coda has built it in a way where the icons pop up, and it's actually very visually helpful. But so just figuring out, oh, I meant for this to, I need to change this number to text, and then the whole thing pops in place. It's really exciting.
I love that. One thing you mentioned a little while ago is this idea of getting your team on board. Like, hey, maybe people don't want to start using a new thing. Do you have any recommendations for if you've built something cool that you're really proud of? Like, how do you then get other people to come along for the ride with you? Any words of wisdom there?
I really don't. I honestly haven't had a whole lot of success yet. I would love for all my teams to work on Coda. I mean, I think you could run a whole production off of Coda. And if you were using like the cross-dock functionality with a whole team, you could have the script, and inside the script, you have props, you have sounds, you have actors, you have lines, you have characters. And so that's all stuff that could be broken out into a table and sent in many different directions to all different departments. And same goes in terms of like my little world of post-production, where you can have, here's all the sound elements, stock elements, visual effects elements. But my advice for getting people on board, I haven't, my production right now is using Airtable, which is fine. Some of them might be listening right now. It's fine. But it doesn't give you the information quite as quickly in terms of staying on top of everything. And I have found that it doesn't have as many formatting options. In terms of how you look at everything. So I think what I hope to do, one of my quarantine projects, is to like really polish off the doc that I made for tracking visual effects, so that next time I'm on a production that wants me to do it, because a lot of times productions have a visual effects department, and they have their own programs that are great, like Shotgun or FileMaker, and those, from what I hear, are great. I don't know them very well. But Coda is great because it's online. Everyone can get it. There's a mobile app. And so I think my hope to get my team on board next time around is to really just come to the table with my own doc that I've made.
Nice.
But I did get my brother to use it, which was very exciting.
Ooh. All right. What's your brother using Coda for?
I don't fully remember. He was tracking employees of his doing certain like jobs in a schedule, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Time tracking is, we've got a couple templates for time tracking out in the world. Also, you had mentioned that a lot of your siblings are having kids. One of my favorite little Coda docs, it's very simple, but it's really fun, is a baby naming doc, where you can put in like all the names that are currently things that you're thinking about. And then using a formula, it inserts that name into different sentences so you can see how it sounds, like Maria Marquis wins the Nobel Prize, or Senator Maria Marquis from the state of Kentucky, blah, 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 blah. And it allows you to kind of try things out. So if any of you are trying to do virtual baby showers or trying to figure out what should we name the next person in our line, it's a really fun little baby naming doc that's out in the world. Obviously much more simple than what we're seeing here. But that's what I think is kind of cool, is that in Coda you can have things that are, elegant and complex like what we're seeing here, but also just a simple kind of Mad Lib, if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a good time. It's, again, just very simple. And we actually used a similar doc when we were trying to figure out what to name Coda. When we were in stealth, we were like, what do we name this thing once we are real? And we actually had it inserted to see how it would sound, in a headline or when people say who they are and all that stuff. It was really, really fun time. Excellent. So Phil, any other advice that you have for other people getting started or wanting to, build something new or revisit a doc and kind of take a look at how to make it better? Any other advice or recommendations you give to folks?
I would recommend looking in the community, which is, accessible. If you have a Coda account, there's like a resources tab and you can go to the community. And just looking stuff up, seeing how other people have approached it, that's what's really helped me. Or just going through the templates and and copying those docs over so you can look at the formulas. You know, there are some formulas that I use all the time and some formulas that I don't understand at all and haven't used. And maybe I could solve a lot more problems more quickly if I knew them. But so I think that is a big recommendation of mine if you're looking to create formulas and track stuff in like a more automated way, which is what I love about Coda, is how it can automate things. One of the docs that I sometimes create on the fly is like I said, my team was using Airtable, and in Airtable you can have a column of images, and if you copy those columns, you actually get a string of words as opposed to an image. So the string of words is like blah, 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 parentheses, the URL for the image, close parentheses. And I wanted to get all those images into a Google Sheet PDF that I was formatting. But so I copied the column into Coda, made a quick formula. So it's just like a really like 3-column table, had the text from Airtable, made a formula that was like, find where the parentheses are, take the link out, and then embed that link into a Google Docs formula. And then I copied that column into Google Docs. So it saved me a lot of time.
Yeah.
Just super on the fly, just one table, no hidden bells or whistles.
Yeah, and I would say that's a really good point, that not every Coda doc needs to be like the one I will use for years. Having a transactional one that's just like, I got to do some stuff here to do something else, or I just want to make a small little calculator. One of the first Coda docs ever, before Coda was Coda, before I was at Coda, it was made by Alex, who's our current CTO, and it was just testing out formulas to see how old in dog years are each of my kids. So, because he has this very old fat dachshund named Baker, and we were trying to figure out like how many years in Baker years would this kid be? Like I can just do a calculation and go. And this was like before Coda even had text. It was very silly. So, fun fact, deep cut. When it's a question on Jeopardy, everyone can now know the answer. Excellent. Well, Phil, we are getting close to the end of time. So folks, if there's any other questions that you have for Phil, please let us know. Otherwise, while we're waiting for folks, if they've got any other questions, Phil, is there anything that you want to plug, anything that you're working on, things that you're thinking about that we can do a signal boost for you today?
Well, I'm not thinking about very much, but apart from everything that's going on in the world, it's a crazy time. But I guess, it's my last day on Mrs. America, which is a show on Hulu that everyone should watch. Very proud of that show, and sad that it's ending, but glad that it's out in the world. So if you have a Hulu account, you can probably watch Mrs. America.
My weekend watching list. Nice.
Yeah, it's a good time. Lots of good music, good acting, good camera work, and great editing.
Amazing editing. I hear the editing is fantastic. That's so great. Cool. Well, it looks like, let's see. We got a good question here, which is, Phil, what is a doc by another maker that inspires you?
Ooh, I wish I had a good answer right at the top of my head, because there are a lot of docs that I've seen that I'm just like, wow, how did they make that? A doc that directly inspired me for the tournament bracket was this doc that Paul in the community made. I'm sorry, Paul, I don't know how to say your last name. It starts with a D. I like concatenate. I never say these things out loud. But you say Paul D. He's the one who posted about scalable vector graphics. And that is what really got me excited to spend all this time making a tournament bracket. Because if you can attach your data to visuals and make it easy to represent, then you can really do a lot. And it doesn't have to be, just data. Like you could animate a game, you could animate a story, and you could do that all in a Coda doc. I was just thinking of a good idea, but it left my brain in terms of
came out the other end.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, one of the docs that I, like Phil said, sometimes it's amazing to me, like, how did they make this? I would have never thought to have done something like this. There's another person on our community who's actually made like games in Coda, Daniel Stiebler, where you can go and like you're like grabbing items and you're moving through and you're like fighting and you're getting you have like life that you're working through. And it's something that was like we had never intended for Coda to be made to do something like that, but it works and it's fun. And it's just interesting because once you see a pattern in a doc, like here we see a pattern in Phil's doc of like using buttons and an embed, now you can start to think about how else can I use that pattern? Like, oh, I wonder if I could do this with like slides for a presentation or with kind of an instructional video, maybe. But it kind of allows you to start to take a look at what's going on here from a pattern or a structure perspective, and then how can you use that? I always say Pablo Picasso said great artists steal, and the same thing is true for makers in Coda. So definitely steal those ideas, steal those good structure thoughts, make them your own, and definitely join the Coda community where you can hang out with fantastic people like Phil. It's a wonderful place to get connection, ideas, inspiration, and also answers to questions in addition to working with Coda.
One of I remembered my one thought that escaped me, and it had to do with the scalable vector thing. But one of the things that's kind of cool about Coda that I've enjoyed is that it is kind of in the beginning stages of, it's still a tool that's being built, there are updates all the time. So when I started this music doc, I won't bring it over now because of the lag, the old version, I had my own collapsible filters going on. So it's great that Coda built that. It's a lot of fun as they add functionality. So I'm sure in the future there'll be like more printing functionality. I haven't actually experimented much with that, but the possibility of embedding scalable vector graphics in your doc is you can easily, quickly have an image that you can download and print if you're using that method. And so that's also very exciting, is being able to have a PDF outside of the doc that you can share with people and export that way.
Totally.
So that's also just a functionality that is there in Coda. It's a little in the weeds right now, I think, to get it to work, but I'm sure, in the future that it'll be super easy.
Yeah. And I will say we do release things very frequently. And we also are always looking for people to help us beta test. So if you want to be the first to know when we are announcing something, or if you want to be the first person who knows when beta testing is available so you can try it out yourself, the community is also the best place to go because that's where we announce things first. That's where we ask for beta testers. And it's a good way to just always keep your pulse on exactly what's going on. Because I think there's something really fun about revisiting a doc that you've made before a lot of features were available. And then you're like, oh, wow, now I can add collapsing, or I can add, checklists that aren't tables. I can go ahead and embed things with a card. Oh, I can do, nesting pages for as much as I want to do. I can drag and drop things all over the place. I can add an outline. There's fun, lots of things that are happening just all the time to make things better and better. Great. Well, Phil, thank you so much for spending some of your precious time with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure exploring this doc with you. If you want to stay connected to Phil, again, community.coda.io. And you can also always get in touch with the whole Coda team, support@coda.io. We are an entire company that is ready and waiting to support you. So please just let us know what we can do to help. Also, if you have a doc that you like, that you want to brag about, feel free, let me know. I'll put my email over there into chat, maria@coda.io. I'd love to talk with you about it. And with that, Phil, have a lovely long weekend. Best of luck as you wrap on the show. And definitely everybody check out Mrs. America on Hulu and go ahead and give Phil a couple of virtual claps while you do so.
All right. Thank you so much, Maria. This has been fun.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everybody.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.